The Championship just continues to deliver all these twists and turns. We've got a lot of them to talk about today. So guys, welcome back to another video and to another episode of the Championship Roundup. As always, do get all your thoughts in the comments down below as to what you made of your guys' team's performance over the weekend. We had quite a few results that were all over the place. The Championship table starting to shape up. But before we head into anything, I will include your guys' score predictions on screen now. So fair play to all of you who did get a score prediction correct this weekend. These four were seemingly the most correctly predicted results this weekend. That was Huddersfield against Luton, Forest versus Wycombe, Derby against Barnsley, and Birmingham versus Bournemouth. And we also had a few other outliers in there as well, so fair play to the three people who correctly predicted Rotherham beating Preston by 2-1. Blackburn against QPR was another quite popular scoreline as well, that one ending 3-1 in the end. And if we take a look at what that means for the prediction league, as you can see to the side of me is Juvest FC, who remains in top place, and they have been the first person to break that 100-point barrier. We've also got Charlie Wood climbing into the top 24 as well. He had a good game week, getting 11 points. It's all very tight though around the middle of the table. I'm remaining quite competitive at the moment in 5th place. And before we do get into anything, if you've not already, make sure to go ahead and subscribe. We are aiming for 30,000 subscribers. We're getting closer and closer towards it now, so if you're not already, make sure to go ahead and subscribe. We've got a lot of big things planned for when we do hit 30,000 subscribers, so if you could help us get there, that would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's talk about these games. So starting out with Friday night's game, that saw Bristol City claim all 3 points at Cardiff as they walked away with a 1-0 away victory. Similar to last season when Josh Brownhill scored that absolute worldie, but this time the goal coming after just 2 minutes, and it was quite a nicely worked goal from Bristol City. It started out at the back, Nakiwell sort of peeled off onto that left hand side to switch the play well. Semenyo gets the ball into Chris Martin, who's been more of a provider so far this season, but he stuck it away well to make it 1-0 to Bristol City. After that, and as you can see by the match stats to the side of me, this was a brilliant sort of smash and grab performance from Bristol City, who defended absolutely superbly in that second half when Cardiff were throwing absolutely everything at them. You know, they tried to go 2 up front with Glatzel and Kiefer Moore, and they did put Bristol City into a couple of uncomfortable positions. You know, if someone was going to conjure up something, it probably was going to be Harry Wilson. He looked like the sort of player that could make the difference in terms of creating the chance or maybe getting one himself. But once again, this was Daniel Bentley in top form, similar to that game against Nottingham Forest away. Everything that came his way, he was sweeping up. And every once in a while, he does seem to have these sort of just inspired performances where nothing's getting past him, and that was exactly the case in this one. So Cardiff, I'm no doubt, will be frustrated after how much of the ball they had and how many chances they actually created in comparison to Bristol City. But for City, it was the perfect away performance. Kept a clean sheet, got their goal early on, and grinded it out from there. And it also leaves them on 20 points going into the international break, in the top 6, so not too many complaints after they had hit a bit of a rocky patch in their season. Then we had Reading fall into another 3-0 defeat, this time at the hands of Stoke City in Saturday's early kickoff, and the international break may not have come at a bad time for Reading. They'll be looking to hit that reset button and just get back to how they were at the start of the season. But once again, it was a game which was quite similar to their one in midweek against Preston. They started the game out quite well, had a couple of chances going forward. Angus Gunn, the Stoke goalkeeper, was kept on his toes. However, it was defensive individual mistakes which ended up costing them. Tyrese Campbell with his 8th goal contribution of the season, that's now 3 goals and 5 assists for him so far. He opened the scoring after Reading failed to clear their lines, but the real disappointments came from the 2nd and 3rd goals they conceded. The defender as experienced as Morrison stepping out from the back too slowly, leaves Fletcher on side. He has an easy finish to make it 2, and then the 3rd goal comes from a Gibson mistake. They have been sort of tinkering with that defensive line. In the absence of Liam Moore at the back, they've been trying out different sorts of combinations, but nothing seems to be clicking for them at the moment. And despite all the possession they had, it was Stoke who were the much more clinical side. So in the end, it does still leave Reading top of the Championship heading into this international break, with that lead at the top now being cut down to just 1 point. Bournemouth heading into the international break in quite a nice position. They're now sat 4th in the table on 20 points after 11 games, and they've got a lot of creativity into this side. It was all about trying to find a system that gets the best out of all these players, and still with a couple of them on the bench. We saw some lovely football being played in this one, the sort of football that we associated with Bournemouth when they were initially promoted to the Premier League and the football they were playing there early on. But the first goal, for example, absolutely brilliantly worked from that right hand side over to the left. Some great work from Stanislas Defeed and Danjuma, who finishes really well. David Brooks also bagged a double in this one, the first one with aid of a deflection, and then he takes his second one in the second half really nicely. And this team was causing all sorts of problems throughout. You know, Dom Solanke was getting into some good areas, holding the ball up for those other creative outlets around him. You look at someone like Jefferson Lerma, who can be an absolute like Rolls Royce at this level. Like the nutmeg for the first goal was absolutely absolutely superb. Birmingham did get a consolation goal back. Scott Hogan headed home from a Jeremy Bell cross, but that was just to be a consolation in the end, and the quality between the two sides really showed. Then we have Blackburn getting back to winning ways as they saw off QPR by 3-1. Now, we weren't actually expecting Adam Armstrong to be fit, back ready for this game, but he showed his class in the end, and he's now the league's top scorer with 11 goals after he bagged a brace in this one. It was Blackburn who started out the game well, but Sonny Dieng, who we mentioned a couple of videos ago for QPR and how good he's been so far this season, really was keeping QPR in it at times. And listen, the away side did have their moments on top in this game, but couldn't really capitalise on them. It was Ben Berison who gave Blackburn the lead after quite an inventive corner was taken. He's sort of leaning back on himself and gets a really good connection with the ball as it sails into the far post. But QPR do get back into the game. Lyndon Dykes knows how to take a really fierce penalty, doesn't he? But then Blackburn did really well with those 2 goals moving forward. Adam Armstrong on 2 counter-attacks. The first one, a great bit of vision by Harvey Elliott, who was like a constant threat throughout this one. And then the second one was quite simple in the end, the ball over the top, and Armstrong finished well. I think these are the sort of games where Blackburn tend to play best, when the game's a little bit more open. One player for QPR who I'm excited to see more of as the season goes on is Willock. He was introduced at half-time and had a few more flashes for them. I think that given a good run of games, he could be something quite decent. And then we had a goalless draw being played out between Brentford and Middlesbrough. We spoke about in the preview which sort of style of play would come out on top. Would it be Middlesbrough's more rigid defensive unit, or would it be Brentford's fluid attack? And Brentford just couldn't find a way past them in this one. As you can see by the stats to the side of me, there are actually only 2 shots on target in the entirety of this match, something that you definitely wouldn't usually associate with Brentford. But this Middlesbrough team's an absolute unit at the moment. The last time they made it into the playoffs under Tony Pulis, they weren't the most sort of free-scoring side in the league, but they kept things ridiculously tight at the back, and that's just what they've been so far this season. I think that if they keep up anywhere near this sort of level of consistency defensively, they'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. They had a couple of chances going forward. The best one probably fell to Chuba Akpom, who just had his shot go over the bar, but apart from that, it was Brentford who was sort of probing in and around the Middlesbrough box for a lot of this game, but couldn't come up with anything that was too clear cut. You know, Ivan Toney, the league's probably most informed striker at the moment, couldn't really get anything going for him. And ultimately, I don't think that's a bad point at all for Middlesbrough, who are now sat just outside the top 6. Then we had Derby losing once again, and are now sat bottom of the Championship heading into this international break. We'll talk about what that could mean for the future of Philip Koku and things like that in a second. But Barnsley, got to say, really impressed. I have to admit, I owe an apology to Barnsley fans because I made a mistake on that goalkeeper ranking video where I put Collins above Walton. For some reason in my head, I had it that Collins was the goalkeeper that finished the season for Barnsley last season and did so well in that running for you guys, but that was Walton, wasn't it? Obviously, you had 3 goalkeepers. You had Radlinger, Walton and Collins that were all sort of battling it out throughout the season. But Walton was terrific in this one. Whenever Derby came forward and posed any sort of threat, he kept things cool at the back. Unfortunately, the same can be said for David Marshall, who's probably been Derby's best player so far this season, and is certainly one of them. He gave the ball away cheaply for the first goal, trying to play out from the back. Chaplin spotted that. Barnsley are a team who like to play with a lot of sort of intensity off the ball. I thought they worked those areas really well in this game, but they picked up on those Derby mistakes at the back. It was a brilliant finish by Chaplin. Adebayo with a fantastic finish into the far post sealed it up for Barnsley, and all 3 points for them, who I think will cause teams a lot of problems. In terms of Derby, it's looking like Philip Koku's days are numbered now, with them being sat bottom of the Championship. It's seemingly like they're just waiting for this new takeover to come in, and then something will be announced. I mean, on Twitter today I've seen that John Terry's been one name rumoured with the job, so Derby fans, do let me know in the comments down below, if it was to happen over the international break, who would you like to see come in as that replacement? Next up then, we had Huddersfield against Luton playing out a 1-1 draw. It was Luton, the away side, who took the lead in this one. A really nice volleyed finish from Moncur to give them the lead going into half-time, but Huddersfield managed to level things up going into the second half. And I have to say, with that second goal and actually the passage of play leading into that goal, it was another Harry Toffolo assist, by the way, but we mentioned it a few times, but I've been amazed by how quickly Huddersfield have taken to this new style of play. If you looked at them last season, they were a team which was a little bit more reliant on sort of individual moments of quality. Like, they could get away with not being the best. I mean, they had like a 20-goal-a-season striker in their team last season in Colin Grant, didn't they? Steve Mounier as well, who chipped in with quite a few goals. However, this season, it's less so about the individuals and more so about the system and their ability to actually play out from the press and from the back. How many goals this season have actually come from Ben Hamer playing it out. For Luton, though, on the whole, it's been a good start to the season. They're currently 10th in the league, and if you take a deeper dive into the results they picked up so far this season, they've sort of beaten all the teams who you expect to be in and around sort of the bottom of the table, or at least are at the moment, and then they've lost against those sides who are currently above them and have been sort of level with those mid-table sides. And if they keep up that sort of form throughout the season, it will serve them quite well and see them finish position in this solid mid-table place, which I'm sure all Luton fans would take this season. You know, it's certainly an improvement from last season, and I think that was what this year was all about, really. Next up, we then had Norwich beating Swansea by 1-0. Now, Swansea will be scratching their heads at the end of this one, wondering how they didn't get anything from this game, because the amount of high-quality chances he actually created in this one, several of them fell to Jamal Lowe, and I think the one probably criticism that you could have of Jamal Lowe, he gets into some very good areas. I think that his movement's absolutely terrific and something that he's formed with AU so far this season. I think that those two bounce off each other quite well. However, his finishing in front of goal can be a little bit erratic at times, and he was slipped in on a few occasions where he just couldn't find the back of the net. The second half, I think it was Grimes who slipped him in for a one-on-one with Tim Krul. If he puts it either side to the goalkeeper, it's 1-0 Swansea, but he just sort of blasts it straight at him. But credit given to Tim Krul, who was brilliant once again in this game. I think that's showing why he is one of the best in the league. You know, if Swansea had someone like a Brewster from last season maybe in this game, then they'd probably go on to get all 3 points. But I don't think it's luck by now that Norwich have been able to come through so many sort of tight games so far this season, and they've ended up picking up all 3 points. They stay in the game till it's very late on, and with the amount of late goals they've scored so far this season, I mean, that's the sign of a team that's going to do well this season when they are battling it out to the very end. It was a brilliant bit of work from Mumba as well, I think, down the left-hand side, gets his ball in. Buendia does well with a bit of tight footwork and then leaves it off for Stiepermann, who finishes well. Obviously a real highlighted player from their promotion season last time around. It was good to see him back on the score sheet. So a big 3 points for Norwich, considering how well Swansea had started this season. That leaves them just 1 point off the top heading into this international break. Then we had Forest putting an end to Wycombe's unbeaten run as they saw them off by 2-0 at the City Ground. Lyle Taylor with a brace in this one. I thought that each of the goals showed what he's really good at. The first one being goal poacher, playing off the shoulder of the last defender. It was a brilliant ball in from Cyrus Christie. Maybe a few criticisms of the Wycombe defence there. You know, either the goalkeeper or Knight should be claiming it in that area, but Taylor ghosts in really well to that position. Then the second goal was a fantastic example of how well he actually carries the ball. You know, something that Forest are blessed with in this squad is options in those forward areas. You know, while someone like Lewis Grabban, who's not particularly hit the heights yet that he did last season, they've got someone like Lyle Taylor who's more than capable of leading the line by himself, and what a finish that second goal was. But in terms of Wycombe, it wasn't a bad performance by any stretch of the imagination. You know, when they were 1-0 down, they had several moments where they were on top of this game. You know, they had several threats that were coming in from crosses coming into the box, set pieces and things like that. When Akin Fenwell was introduced to the game, that was another threat that they had going forward. They just couldn't quite get anything over the line, and Samba managed to stay composed in net and kept a clean sheet in the end. So like I say, for Nottingham Forest, it's small steps that they're making at the moment, but are heading in the right direction. You know, if this game was like the 7 or so games ago in the season, they'd have probably dropped points in this one. So I think it does show a bit more of a resilience about this side at the moment, and then they'll look to obviously work on things over the international break, because I do think there's still a lot more to come from this Forest side, surely. Then we had Rotherham beating North End by 2-1, a result which pretty much sums up Preston's season so far, really. We take one step forward with that brilliant win midweek against Reading, and then take 2 steps back with this sort of game. In the end, I think you got to give credit to Rotherham with the sort of game it turned out being. A lot of the game was played in midfield, and when ours wasn't on it, it was always Rotherham that were going to come out on top. It turned into a very sort of scrappy, long ball-esque sort of game, and our midfielders, who are so important to our system, just weren't on it in terms of picking our passes going forward. We were way too sloppy with the balls we were giving away, and despite Rotherham having the better of the first half, it was probably Preston who had the best chance to take the lead through Daniel Johnson, but his shot straight at the goalkeeper should be doing a little bit better from that. Rotherham do take the lead though. Richard Wood, we all know what a danger he could be from set pieces. It was one that was nodded back to him, and he finished well. But this game was quite a bit about momentum, and when Preston did get back into the game, it was a great finish from Ryan Ledson in at the near post. It really looked like there was only one side that was going to go on and win it. You know, Preston were committing a lot more bodies going forward. However, the way in which we gave the second goal away was so cheap. There was a series of mistakes leading to it. It was Brad Potts with a sideways wayward pass which was easily intercepted. Joe Rafferty from that point onwards needs to take his man down. You know, when you're going in to commit a tactical foul, you're accepting you're getting the yellow card, so you need to make sure that that player's not getting back up and that they can continue to form the counter attack, which they do. He sort of half-heartedly went in to try and trip his man up, and in the end Rotherham raced forward. Crooks is free on the left hand side and finishes well in at Declan Rudd's near post to make it 2-1. Preston do get another chance to get back into the game. Jaden Stockley has a header which comes off the post, but it just wasn't to be happening for us. A draw I don't think would have been too bad of a result considering how the whole game sort of panned out. A draw might have been fair, but credit to Rotherham, they took their chances, and when you're not on it 100% in the midfield in these sorts of games, a side like Rotherham's going to punish you. Sheff Wednesday, who are now off the bottom of the Championship, played out a goalless draw at Hillsborough with Millwall, and despite the good news of them being off the bottom, they were probably a little bit frustrated from this one that they didn't pick up all 3 points. It was against a Millwall side who have been good away from home so far this season. They've got the 3rd best away record in the league. However, they weren't completely at it in this game, and apart from a couple of sort of free headers that they had, you know, Matt Smith had a really good one in their second half. Millwall rarely threatened for this one, which they'll have been quite disappointed about, really. Sheff Wed, on the other hand, had a handful of chances that fell their way, but Bartosz Białkowski was on top form for this one. It was Josh Windass who got into a couple of decent areas trying to run off the shoulder of the last defender. Adam Reach had a good chance which was saved as well, but ultimately Sheff Wed couldn't quite conjure up anything. It was a bit of a slow burning match. They can just be a little bit too lackadaisical in front of goal. They only scored 6 goals so far this season, the 2nd lowest in the league behind Derby County. And Watford have now picked up back-to-back wins in the Championship, which leaves them 2nd heading into this international break, but they had to be work for this one against Coventry, who, I mean, they have such moments of quality going forward, but ultimately they were unravelled by their defence in the end. They've now conceded 23 goals this season, more than any side in the Championship as of yet, but it was Andre Gay who gave Watford the lead. A bit of fortune in that goal. There was a bit of a mishap with Coventry defensively, but they turned this game around with some really high quality goals. I mean, the Gustavo Hamer header, oh my god. Undoubtedly, I think, one of the best signings of the season that we've seen so far. In terms of key passes so far this season, he's 2nd in the Championship. The guy's absolute dynamite in midfield, but the audacity to score a header from like 20-25 yards out. Ben Foster sort of, I seen the interview after the game, he said he tries to come out of his net to try and collect the header, as he's thinking Hamer's going to try and head it back into the box for someone else to get a flick on for, but he goes for it himself, and he's just got that sort of star quality in his locker, doesn't he? He has these real moments in matches, but what a goal nonetheless. Tyler Walker then gives Coventry the lead with a brilliant finish of his own, but that lead for Coventry was to last just a moment of minutes before Watford got back into the game from a corner. Quite a cheap goal to give away once again, and then the penalty in the 83rd minute was once again a bit naive, really, to have your hands up above your head trying to defend. As we all know, you know, from what we've seen in the Premier League lately with how the handball rules change, you really can't afford to give any of those decisions to a referee, and ultimately Watford get all 3 points in the end. So I don't know what it is with Coventry, just a bit of maybe naivety. You know, they do have a bit of a problem with sort of seeing games out when they have had these real spells on top, because they do have quality going forward. That's what's so frustrating about this side. You know, 23 goals conceded so far this season, averaging over 2 goals conceded per 90, isn't something that's sustainable going forward. So that's something that they'll look into over the international break. But for Watford, I still think there's much more to come from this squad. But even with that being said, they're sat 2nd in the league, 1 point off top. But there we have it, guys. There are all the matches that went on this weekend in the Championship. As you can see to the side of me, that is the Championship table heading into this next international break. So we've got Reading and Watford leading the way as our top 2 at the moment, and the bottom 3 being made up of Derby, Sheffield Wednesday and Wycombe. It's a very close one at the moment. As for my goal of the weekend, I've got to give that to Gustavo Hamer for that unbelievable 25-yard header he scored against Watford, and as you guys can see on screen there, that's what you guys have also voted for. So if you want to get involved with the polls where we vote for like the goal of the week every week, head on over to the community tab on the channel and you guys will find the poll there. So you guys agreeing with me for the goal of the week. And then for my result of the weekend, I'm going to give that to Stoke for seeing off Reading by 3-0. Impressive stuff from them. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. So as always, do get all your thoughts in the comments down below for what you made of your team's performance. Do leave a like if you went on to enjoy, and like I said at the start, make sure to subscribe if you're not already. We're on our way to 30,000 subscribers, which we got a lot of stuff planned for when we do eventually hit it, so make sure to stick around. But apart from that, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.